Welcome to Koffee Talks, a Pokémon card collecting podcast with Dan Norton and David Person.
Alright everyone, how is it going? We are back with another Koffee Talks. I am not in the same place as usual. As you may know if you watched the last episode, I'm actually travelling around Europe. Currently, I'm in England at my parents' place. Last weekend was my brother's wedding. This weekend, was my brother's wedding. I suppose last weekend from the time you're seeing this. I'm tired. It's kind of late compared to when we normally record. But this Friday, just gone, was my brother's wedding. The weekend before, we were in Lille. We were doing regionals, which is why we didn't record. David, it's your turn to talk now. Say something, ask something. How's it going?
Dan, it's great to see you out there in the North Wales Welsh town of England. It's not even a town, Dan. Dan, I know. Dan, you went to your brother's wedding. Who do your parents love more, you or your brother?
Well, this was my half brother, so
they love him half as much.
I assume at least my mum prefers me to him.
Okay, yeah, you can't count on that because I can tell you about my kids. Most are halves or steps. Some aren't even really biologically, and I love them all completely unequally. Yes, I get it.
Great. So a big thing that I should mention we did on the way between France and UK, we went to the Van Gogh Museum. We did actually go and get to see the Pokémon exhibit. We saw all of the paintings that they had done, which were the Pokemon / Van Gogh style. They looked very, very cool. It was a very nice exhibit.
How busy was it, Dan? I mean, first of all, it's an amazing thing. Most people, 99% of people probably in their life will never go to a Van Gogh museum, much less an exhibit and a Pokemon inside it. So that's just, that's really a bucket list thing. And you're very fortunate to have Laura to let you do that. And let you spend the money to do that as well, since she really, we both know she's the breadwinner. Dan, what was it busy? Was it crazy? What was it?
It actually wasn't too bad. Most of the majority of the museum you could walk around fairly easily. The small exhibit where there was the Pokemon bit, we had to get in a separate line for about 15 minutes to just get past it. But that was enough. They were letting everyone stop and take photos with all of it. So there was plenty of time. It didn't take too long to do that. We spent a good few hours inside the whole museum. There was obviously so much to see in addition to just the Pokemon exhibit. And there was kind of a Pokemon scavenger hunt still on. That was obviously what they originally were doing, was if you finished the scavenger hunt, that's when you got your promo card. But they did stop that after the first few weeks. But you still got some postcards and stuff. It was really cool.
Were there people outside the front, like basically begging for gray felt hat Pikachu promos? I mean, was there a muttering and an underlying anger at that not being available there anymore?
No, I think people knew that it wasn't happening, so I don't think anyone was there trying to get some.
You can't just trying to get some. You need a noun after that. Something. Some cards, something.
Some of the Pikachus, some of the things we were talking about. But
fine.
Me and Laura, fingers crossed, have ours now, because after we recorded the last podcast, they did do another thing on the Pokemon Center website. We got to put our orders in. It says that our order shipped with them. I've heard some people have been getting their orders without them, but I'm hoping that ours are fine. The orders have arrived and they're at our neighbor's house at the moment, so we'll see when we get back.
Daniel Norton, I'm in the exact same boat. I have 3 packages on the way, and they all list that card as a content of the package. But if you're reading online and you're reading what people are saying, they're, a bunch of them are saying the card's not in there and that it was canceled and not fulfilled. So do we have anyone that you've read that said, hey, if they didn't send you the card, they took it off the order invoice, or do we just not really know?
No, I've seen people saying that they've actually got their boxes with the invoice that lists the card, but the card's not in there. But if anyone gets an order, be sure to check under the flaps at the bottom of the box, because I've heard a few cases of where people thought they didn't have them, but then when they fully pulled the box apart, they were there. They just got stuck underneath something.
Well, I appreciate your optimism, sir, because, being in the same boat, like I wouldn't even think I automatically have them or believe I have them. I'm just waiting with bated breath. I don't know what bated breath is, but it's sort of it's something that they say here in the States, Dan. You guys probably have something in the UK, like I'm waiting with that buttery crusted thing you guys eat. What is that called?
Buttery crusted thing. You mean a crumpet?
Well, no, I know what a crumpet is, but Maddie's going to kill me because we always talk about it.
All right.
It's the dinner roll thing. But anyways, we're waiting with that to figure out if it's actually in there. So
All right.
in the meantime, the world has to figure out if they should be paying $100 a piece for them, or 52, or 75, or 110. So because nobody knows if they're really still coming or not.
I'm sure people will figure it out soon enough. Just wait. I'm waiting until we get back home. Once we get back home, I'll open the boxes up and we'll know for sure.
Okay, then I won't tell you what's in mine before you come, unless I don't get them in mind and I've got to talk to somebody I need to whine to.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Dan, did you have your folks watch the? How long have you been with your folks so far?
So we've been at my parents' place almost a week now.
Okay, they still like Laura?
They do. Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. So how many podcasts of yours have you forced them to watch in the time that you've been there, in the full solid 7 days, since I know you promised you and your audience you would do that?
Well, none yet. Now I'll say it's been 6 days, but hey, we've been busy because we had the wedding. And what happened on my first day here? I flew over from Amsterdam on Monday night. It was super late. My flight got delayed. I didn't get in until after midnight. Didn't get to bed at 1 o'clock. And what happened? I had to wake up at 6 a.m. to fly down to London to pick some
Wait a
cards
minute.
up for someone.
What? You had
I
to
know.
go to London out of your way on your trip and pick up some cards for someone?
I know.
That's
I'm sure
it.
we'll talk about that a bit later on. But yeah, I had to fly to London. I spent 4 hours in Heathrow Airport and flew back same day.
First of all, I can't even imagine you would do that.
I know.
There's going to be hell to pay for whoever caused you that mess.
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what else, Dan? What else about your trip can you tell me? Talk just for a minute or two about the wedding. What was the most controversial part of the wedding?
I don't think there was any controversy. I think it all went off fine. All of the divorced sides of the families kept separate from each other and seemed to all be okay.
Dan, I know you don't drink or anything, but at a wedding like that, when there is the potential for so much family controversy, are you really hitting the bottle hard?
No, I didn't drink. I was fine. I stayed to just fruit juices.
All right, and then Laura having to watch you stay to fruit juices, she must be completely smashed. Am I correct?
I think she had one drink with a little bit of gin in it, but she stayed pretty much completely sober too.
If you guys come to Vegas and we're drinking heavily together, are you guys not going to be drinking? Because I don't understand. This is Sin City, where what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Can she at least drink for the both of you?
No, she can barely drink. Even if she drinks, she has like one and she's done.
Oh my goodness, it sounds like we're gonna have a lot of fun. How about the bear? Can we bring the bear and schmooze that guy up a lot?
Yeah. Okay, the bear will get hammered. There we go.
Fair enough. Good.
You
We
take
got
the bear to the bar.
Okay. Dan, let me talk real quick since we got nothing to say. I will tell you a couple things. I got ripped off to heck this week. I'm getting tired of it. I'm getting tired of this new hobby in which I always get ripped off. And here's what it's a function of, by the way. It's a function of spending. If you're spending money and you're buying stuff and you are out there, you have more of a chance of getting ripped off. It's just that simple statistically, how it happens. So
Yeah.
I ended up buying something on a Facebook group. I had the guy convince me to move over. I'd never done Venmo goods and services. I'd only done PayPal goods and services. He moved me over to Venmo goods and services, which I had my son pay because I don't have a Venmo. And what he ended up doing was selling the same Evolving Skies 6-box booster case to about 62 different people. And then he didn't cancel any orders, fulfill any orders. He didn't do anything except ghost everybody. And now we're all fighting with Venmo to try and get money back, if that's even a possibility. So I will I am going to post a picture at some point here soon. I'm going to post his picture. This is the worst and most egregious person I've ever dealt with. Although Albert Swain was pretty bad. I mean, I don't know if this guy just ran into money troubles. His name is Kevin Reeder, so we'll find out if anybody knows if that's his name or not. He's not. I did not find him around this whole country. And yesterday when I told him I was going to find him, he actually left me one final ghost message with an okay with a up thumbs up. So he's really enjoying being the bad guy right now. And his wife, Shanna Rogers. So if you guys look at the picture and realize it's not Kevin Reeder or Shanna Rogers, or you guys know that person, please let us know. I won't have Dan post it in this video. I'm going to post it separately on my Instagram channel. So that was that
Sorry,
story. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just trying to get everything sorted on my end. It's weirder recording on a laptop rather than recording on my main computer. I will say that's why we're not going to go deep dive into all of the comments this week, mainly just because I don't have my full setup to be able to read comments and record and everything as well. Obviously, we do love that everyone left a lot of comments on last week's video, which again was about the Van Gogh and the Cosmos variants, and on the little mini bonus episode of David singing, which people seem to really love for some reason. So thanks all for that. We had some more suggestions of guests, so I'm sure we will look into those. I know once I'm back over stateside, we're going to look at get some more guests on the podcast.
Dan, when do you come back stateside? So right now here it's a Sunday morning in Nevada, United States of America, and there I'm going to go with a Sunday evening in the UK. Is the
Yeah,
UK the same as Great Britain? If I said Great Britain, would it be the same thing or not?
there's some difference,
Okay, then we'll just
but
call it the Great British UK of Welsh. Okay, so that's where you are. What time is it there now, Dan?
it's 7:30 p.m.
All right, so you're just about ready to tuck into bed. Dan, when do you come back?
I'll be back next Sunday, so we fly from here to France next Saturday, and then we fly France back to Ohio on Sunday.
France is a direct flight?
No, we go via Texas.
Oh, through Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Dan, I have to ask you something. It's eating at my core. You told me in a previous podcast, because I try to listen to you when I'm not uninterested. And I'm trying to figure out with your hair. You had said that you were contemplating dyeing your hair back to something of a more typical color. I don't even know what that means for you. And here we sit looking at the fact that the hair looks more pinkish than ever. What happened? What transpired, Dan? Did you know? And I even a little birdie told me that you actually re-dyed it more pink, although maybe
Yeah.
not the roots. So how was that decision made? Did you check with the family on your level of acceptance or what?
No, I just decided this is what I wanted to do, so I did it. So the day before the wedding, just went in, had it all thinned out, the sides shaved, and then said, "Can you dye it pink?" And they had pink, so we got it all in. It is a little bit of a darker pink, and like I had said, I didn't have my roots done. You can sort of see there, so my roots are still my natural color, so it all looks a bit darker overall. Still never got it spiked up because it's still really heavy, but we had a nice slicked back look for the wedding, which I'm sure you'll see some photos of around my social medias coming up.
And any new tattoos while you've been there, Dan?
No, no new tattoos while I've been here.
All right, and your brother wasn't upset about you stealing his attention with the redo of the hair dye situation.
No, I don't think I stole any attention.
Okay, all
I
right,
think it
good.
was all fine.
Dan, I'm dying to know what happened on that flight. Can you talk to me, please? You talked about taking some midnight flight to Mania, and I mean, it certainly sounded like it was unplanned but crazy. What are you willing to tell our viewers what the heck happened there, Dan?
The Tuesday flight, after I got to my parents' place?
It had to do with a late night thing, and you were unexpected, and you were
Oh,
exhausted.
so we had a flight from Amsterdam to Newcastle, which was a late night Monday night flight because we'd took the train up from Lille to Amsterdam. We stayed one night in Amsterdam, and then we're going to fly back to England that night. The flight got delayed from Amsterdam to Newcastle. It's a short flight. It's only about an hour long flight, but because it got delayed by about 45 minutes, it meant we weren't back till after midnight. It was back at my parents' place, like I said, about 1 o'clock. But I had to get up at 6 a.m. because I had to go to London the next day. It's again about an hour's flight to London. I was in Heathrow Airport for 4 hours, and I was flying back. The reason was our mutual friend Ruben was coming back from Japan, and he had some cards for you, and you didn't want them shipped. This is the same Ruben who got your number one trainer last year that bounced around all over the place from Spain to Portugal to Canada that came to me that I then brought it to you. He was bringing some cards back from Japan for you, so I met up with him in London the one day he was in London. He flew into Gatwick. He had to get a bus over from Gatwick to Heathrow to meet me in Heathrow. I just got the stuff off him and immediately had to go back through security to go wait for my next flight back, and then he had to get a bus back to Gatwick because he was flying out again same day.
That I mean, you tell that story like it's just a small piece of butter on a piece of breaded toast or toasted bread. Dan, that's a pretty incredible story. You went like out of your way for hours and hours, sat in an airport for hours, came in the middle of your trip. Laura's probably peeved as pavuvu. And then this other guy named Ruben, who was able to acquire the number one last year, was out there doing some of his magic, acquiring. What did he acquire this year that you were picking up, Dan?
The main thing I was picking up was we got your number one trainer from this year. So your trophy cards are complete once again.
The number one trainer, the number one world champion, world trophy trainer from someone in Japan who doesn't even speak English or Portuguese or Spanish?
Yep, believe it was the VGC winner for Masters. Japanese winner. Ruben finally managed to get everything sorted. I know Ruben's been talking to him basically since the day of the tournament. He got it sorted. Ruben went over. He picked it up in person. I know Ruben actually picked up 2 or 3 more trophy cards from different people around Japan because he was middlemaning them for other people as well. He's sold at least one on now, and he was taking the other one over to Sweden or something, I think, after he left Gatwick. But he managed to get you that one. And he even spoke to me in the airport. He said, "Do you know anyone wants to buy an illustrator?" Because he's trying to help someone sell an illustrator now as well. He's well and truly integrated into the Japanese community to help sell cards outside of Japan.
That is an amazing story, Dan. I don't know. I can't express it on a dumb video that 3.5 people, every day watch. How much I appreciate you guys, both of you, but especially you going out of your way on your trip and risking divorce and loss of limb and life to basically pick that card up. So thank you very much, my friend. That was very much appreciated. Very kind of you, and it's amazing. I'm just so blessed to have the support of wonderful folks like you and Ruben, and that are willing to sell this and help me acquire these cards. So
I will say Laura wouldn't have noticed. She was asleep the whole time. Because we obviously got back so late, we went straight to bed. She didn't notice when I got up to leave, and she just from there, my stepdad was coming to pick me up at the airport when I got back, and he just said they had to actually go in and wake her up at 2 in the afternoon to come pick me up. So if he hadn't needed to pick me up and bring her with him, I would have just she would never have known. I would have got back before she woke up.
well, that makes me feel better, Dan. Thank you. And why did he bring her with him to the airport? Is he worried she's going to steal from the house when if he leaves her there alone?
No, we were going straight to visit my grandma afterwards, so he brought her to pick me up, and then we went straight down there.
Okay. All right. That's a great story. What's really cool for me is I ended up paying a very small amount for that card because the number one, people are going to wonder. So because what happens is we acquire the cards first, and I pay afterwards. Typically, most people know I never pay. So in this case, I got that card for free as long as Dan can get it back to the States for me without, safely. At this point, I could only have really a picture of the card because Dan has it, which he also has $600,000 to $700,000 worth of the rest of my stuff in a suburban vault in the town of Ohio, Canada, somewhere. So yeah, I don't. It is what it is, but it's all good. So
Yeah, it is not a small amount of stuff I've got for you because I now have the full 1 through 4 run for this year for you. And this purchase that you made did include another copy of the Champion because the winner was wanting to sell their Champion stamped one as well. We talked about how you did get a Champion copy just in case you weren't able to close a deal on a number one. You'd picked up a Champion copy, I think, from a Gogh or a Unite player in advance, but you do now have another copy of the Champion. So
yeah. So what Dan is saying is, anybody out there, you might have the rare opportunity to come and buy a Champion card through me. The Champion stamped. What is it? Paradise Resort card. Is that right, Dan?
yeah, yeah. That's
It's
assuming
like,
I bring you the spare one and I don't just keep
yes.
it for myself.
That's true. That's true. If Dan actually gets that card to me, then because I would have one extra along with my other run of finalist and top 32 semifinalists, a lot of folks still look to complete those runs. So, let me know if you're interested and we could try to work something out because I'm slowly going broke and my wife and I just sit and cry at night about what this Pokemon spending has done to both our lives, our relationships, and our futures. That's not
It's
even both. That's three times, three things. So what it's done to all of those things.
I mean, it's a fair enough discussion on Steph's part.
Somebody's got to bring it up. I refuse to.
Yeah.
So, Dan, what else? Tell me another exciting thing or two about your trip.
So we've been able to pick up a few other smaller cards for both of us and for Laura. I ordered the Scarlet Violet blister packs that were UK exclusive. Again, pretty easy to get over here. Basically, everywhere had them in stock. It's just that they never came to the US, so we never bothered buying to import them. I always knew I was just going to get them over here. So all three of us now have a complete set of those. Those are Our Believer and Pormots. The nice UK exclusive foiling that's on them now. Well, it's not UK exclusive foiling, only released over here. I grabbed us both some Alakazam EX boxes yesterday from 151. The reason being, when we got ours, I'd made a note that, again, we're going back to Smooth and Pixel Cosmos from last week. I'd made a note that the Abra was one and the Kadabra was the other. I couldn't remember which way around it was. I would have to have checked. But I then saw some boxes where they were both the same, so whichever way around it was, one of them's a variant. So I picked those up just when I was out in town when I saw those. So I've got those for us. And we went to some stalls in a market, actually, and picked ourselves up some singles. Me and Laura filled some gaps in sets. And we picked up some more of those, a couple of those 151 energies, the smooth variations that are harder to find. So all in all, we've had a pretty successful trip so far. We've got a lot of cool stuff.
That's great. That's great. Didn't one of our commenters make a comment about those Alakazam and whatever boxes too? I remember
Yes,
that.
someone did mention about them having different foils. Yeah, I think I'd sort of got some of that information. Like I say, with me traveling, it's a bit harder for me to have all of my information and stuff completely pinned down like I normally would at home. But I know we'll be recceing that up when I get home. Oh, speaking of recceing things up when I get home, I got a message from Nathan, Maverick Nate, while I was over here. Nathan of Bulbapedia fame. We've talked about him on the podcast before. He sent me a link. Pokemon finally released checklists for the prize packs. We know what's in them finally properly. So when I get home, that's one of the first things I'm going to be doing is sorting out all of my prize pack stuff that I've already opened, making sure exactly I know what I have for me, for Laura, for you, and then we'll go from there, really. But
Okay,
it's
good.
it's going to be good just to know where we're at.
Yeah, that's great. And on this end, what I've been doing is I wasn't aware that kind of happened in the middle of all of my workings on this end as well. And my
Yeah.
set person has claimed that she may be trying to do that, but I know that's not her
Okay.
forte, and I know that she's very much behind in be dealing with other stuff that she's got to deal with. So
Yeah.
I have been buying a few of those packs. I try to ask and make sure they're not weighed just in case we want to take a gamble and open some, as well as some loose type of deals where people have a large amount and are selling them relatively inexpensively in hopes of being able to at least have some resources if it's chosen not to go and just buy every card individually. So we'll
Yeah.
see. I didn't buy a ton, but I bought some, and so at least I've got some series 1, 2, and 3 packs put away at
I'm
reasonable.
feeling for at least for series 2 and 3, we should hopefully get to the point where just from how much me and Laura are opening for like just the ones we actually get from attending league, the ones we get for free, we should be able to fill out, all of the non V's and V Maxes, all of the regular cards in both foil and non foil. I'm hoping I can fill out at least that for all three of us. So if we can get that done, then it shouldn't be too difficult from there to just go in and buy the V's and V Maxes and stuff that we need. Some of
Okay.
them are going to be pretty expensive, but it shouldn't be too difficult to actually do it.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful to finally have the at least the pack checklist type
Yeah, yeah,
stuff. So,
definitely.
um, Dan, I saw something that I did acquire. I have it coming again. So when I say I acquire and have it coming, it's not acquired to me because it may not come, right? You never know. I've certainly had these situations before, but what I saw something that seemed to be, since we were on the topic here of talking about foreign or non-USA promos, they're called thank you stamped promos. And
Yeah,
I know there was one years ago, maybe that hybrid gun or something, but
yeah.
I saw five new ones, I believe, that are supposed to be in other countries or from other countries. Did I just duplicate that purchase? Do we have them? Did I buy something I might not have that's more recent in these five set of five promos?
I thought you already have them. I know I already have them. They came out around the same time as the High Dragon. It's just they only came out in European countries. So the UK got the English ones with thank you on, and there was a couple of other countries got that. But you can find that same set of five. You can find with like Mercy and Gracias and stuff on it on the cards from regionalized languages around Europe. But I did think you already had them. It's a potential. It's one that we missed, and I thought you had them when you didn't. But they're not new. They have been around for a while.
Okay, because they do all say thank you, like they're not any other languages or something. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, okay, all right. I'll show them at some point as well, just to
yeah.
if,
I'll
if
put
they
some
have
pictures up of them.
make sure.
Like, I'll make sure there's pictures on the screen because yeah, I know I do have the set. I bought them about a year ago, maybe. I think I bought mine. I definitely bought mine quite a bit after they were released.
Okay, okay, got it. I don't know what else can we say, Danny. What's left for the last week? What are we doing for the next week while we're out and about?
Next week we're traveling around a little bit. I think it's absolutely terrible weather over here. It's northern UK weather. It's just really rainy. So we might be doing a bit of traveling around. We may end up just being stuck in the house a little bit, somewhat. Um, yeah, we'll explore a little bit, but we'll see. We'll play it by ear depending on what the weather's like for the rest of the week.
This is not a place where you always talk about going to some Disney places and things like that. This was not a trip you were doing any of that?
No, when we found out we were going to Lille, I considered going to Disney for the Saturday, but then I realized I would have had my Thursday night and my Friday traveling into Lille. Then I would have had my Saturday traveling from Lille to Paris and back. My Sunday was traveling from Lille to Amsterdam. My Monday was traveling from Amsterdam to Newcastle. And then my Tuesday was from Newcastle to London and back. So I decided for the Saturday I didn't want to add another travel day, and I would just take that off with how much traveling I had coming up after that.
Got it. If it weren't for the dogs, Dan, do you think, knowing what this chaos that this country is going through at this point, would you just basically stay there and never come home?
No, I wouldn't want to live back here again. I still much prefer living over there.
It's because of the wrath of your parents trying to make up for all those years when cursed them?
Could be. There's a lot of reasons I like living over there.
Okay. All right. I'm sure one is the fact that you've got hundreds and millions of followers that would only follow you if you lived in the USA. So
Sure.
sure,
There's
exactly.
like 1,300 followers or something, a lot of which came while I was still living in the UK.
Yeah, remember we can't we have to make sure our podcasts continue, so there's always a number that's increasing more highly than our competitors. And
Yeah,
also, if you get more followers than me, we're going to have a talk about this whole compensation thing right now, because
sure.
right now I don't want it to change. You know what I'm saying? I like making just a little bit more money than you do.
I just spent a day flying to London and back for you. Talk
I
about
don't make more money
compensation.
than you do. I was teasing. Of course, I don't make a penny. What are you talking about? I appreciate you. I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah,
I don't, you know what? When you got to get up to go to the bathroom 67 times a night, pretty much nothing makes any sense, Dan. It's going to happen. You can dye the hair all you want. But when you get to be 62, there's nothing you're in control of anymore. Do you
that's
understand?
fine. Sure, I'll whatever you say, Dave. Oh, speaking of
Okay.
that, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I did pick up something for you in Lille. I picked up a players pack from a recent Worlds that someone was dropping off to me, and some guy just came up to me randomly and said, "Hey, are you Dan Norton?" And you know how he recognized me? Ruben told him to look for the guy with the pink hair, and it worked. And that's how I was able to get you some of your cards, was because the guy knew to look out for the pink hair. So it works.
Well, you know what? I can't argue with success, Dan. So
No.
thank you for that. Thank you for going not only above and beyond, but above and beyond with the whole identification situation so that you could acquire cards from me. It's fantastic. I appreciate it. You're very much appreciated. I'm going to make sure that if I can get it done before I die, that I at least put something in the will for you, you know?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Because I
I
have no
mean,
reason to give anything for the kids. That's for damn sure.
yeah. If you die before I next come to Vegas, I'll just pretend I don't own anything of yours.
Yeah.
No,
It's,
it's not like there's a public record where we keep talking about all the stuff I've got for you.
yes, no, nobody watches. So actually it's not.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. No one, no one pays any attention to what we say on here.
I mean, it's pretty interesting. Okay, you end up cutting some stuff from a podcast, and then you having a break for a week, and you put it out there, and it has like 1/20th of the normal views. So you can see there's no one. I realized I think it's better if I just maybe if I'm not appearing on the videos, maybe I'll just chatter in the background of a black space, and I'll say, Dan, what about this? And then they won't know it's me, and you'll get more views, Dan. I think I'm actually holding your future back at this point.
I think we're fine. I think the people want to see you. I think the people who do watch are watching quite heavily for you.
All right. Well, I'll stop singing. For those that are watching for me, listen, my apologies for the singing. My apologies for the rants and stuff. It won't happen again. Please just watch, and speaking of watching, I believe, I could be wrong. I'm so wrong so much of the time. I believe that this week is going to be a huge, huge development in the hobby, um, with an announcement. So keep your eyes and ears open. And hopefully, by the time Dan gets back, we'll have a special podcast to reveal a big announcement. We'll see. Not that Dan's announcement today that he's holding the number one card for me hostage, and I may get it sometime in a week or two or 6 or 7 if he and the wife ever travel out to Las Vegas. But that was a kind of a big announcement, meaning I now own every card. I don't own anything because me and Dan together, Dan and I share ownership of every single World's Trophy card ever created. So that's kind of fun. But the bigger announcements coming, I think, within the next 7 days. So eyes and ears to the ground and open. And we're always appreciative of you guys being friends and listening and stuff like that.
All right, it feels like we're running out of stuff to talk about. So let me look at some comments in a bit more detail from last week. Why not?
Sure. DL. Don't put the T in at all. In more DL.
Detail. So I recorded with my friend Jordan on Wednesday for our Lorcana podcast, and he said I sound so much more British while I'm over here being around other British people. He said my accent comes back so much stronger than it is normally.
Well, not I see that too, but it's not only that, it's just your lack of focus, your lack of intelligence. A lot of that stuff comes back when you're back there, Dan.
Yeah, makes sense.
At least I don't have to worry about where Laura is. I know right now there's a good chance she's sleeping. It really doesn't matter what time of the day. It's just, pretty much most of the time.
She's not because I'm on the bed. I'm sitting on the bed recording. She's downstairs watching TV. Oh, so a few of the comments from last week were about our discussion we had about the Van Gogh Museum and how liable they were for the crowds and whether they should have known in advance. It seemed like a lot of people were on your side about the fact that they wouldn't have known because, it's... I guess I was viewing the news differently because I am always in the Pokemon space. So I will concede that I think people are right. They wouldn't have known in advance. But I'm holding the line to say that if they had properly researched it before doing the collaboration, they would have been able to find that stuff if they were looking for it. So meeting in the middle, I guess, is as far as I'm willing to go.
So basically you're doing an I'm sorry, but type of situation, right?
Exactly. And I'm sorry, but.
Yeah, okay.
It's like, you were right, but.
Yes.
Yeah. Nathan has said the podcast he's looking forward to is when we finally get the wives on. I don't think that's going to be anytime soon, I don't think. But hey, Nathan, we do want you on the podcast. We would like you on. When you're back in Ohio next, Nathan, we'll get you on the podcast.
And I force my wife to watch at least every podcast just so Dan can have an additional watch hour. So that does count.
Yeah.
I know Laura doesn't do that. Laura could care less if she's driving to work and has some time. she might watch or might not. She might comment or might not. And by this time, she stopped commenting about 10 podcasts ago. So we know that relationship's going to last a long time.
Yeah. She does watch at work. She just hasn't been at work lately. Laura does have to do all of the images and stuff for this podcast, though. So she at least knows what's happening with that when I send her a big list of pictures I need.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Laura. I should have just I'll take a step back. I'm sorry, but
yeah,
not sorry.
Well, as I said, yeah, a lot of the comments are just recommendations of other people we have on the podcast, so I'll be reaching out to a lot of people, as I said. Anyway, Dave, I'm tired and it's so warm in this house. So why don't you start talking about something and I'll join in? What you got to talk about?
Okay, let's see. What do I have to talk about? I thought it was interesting that I posted a picture this week of maybe the Malaysian card, a Malaysian staff card or something that we picked up,
Yeah,
and somebody sort of they seem to pounce on that picture and said if anybody's looking to middle or whatever from that area, try to contact them. So I think, that's this whole idea of I've seen Facebook posts where people post something and then they talk about op, which is the original poster, I guess. And they're like,
yeah,
if the original poster is okay or has already fulfilled their wish or whatever, then come looking for me. But this person didn't actually say if they're okay, just said come looking for me. So good or bad, it seems that we're at least enlightening a few people as far as how unique some of these cards are and how
yeah.
tough they are to find, and that they're actually out there now. So
It's probably going to be one of those things where the fact that more people know about them means that if we find them, you might have to pay a little bit more for them, but at least we have a lot more chance of actually finding them compared to when no one knew about them.
yeah, exactly, and other little revelations that have kind of come to mind. So I don't grade really very much of anything. It's certainly much more the exception than the rule when something is acquired graded. I prefer not to, but these days when it's getting high end and it's authenticity at question, sometimes you have to. So I didn't really understand this whole concept. I mean, I know about pop reports, um, and I'll talk about this in a minute. But you know what? It's interesting that it seems that I guess you can regrade. I guess there's people, and we're talking about illustrators that were regraded 5 and 6 times. I think you've even mentioned that
Yeah.
in attempts to get a better grade. And so I didn't really realize that that can affect the actual real numbers in a pop report. Like it could say that there's 15, but there might only be 10 because something has been regraded and unhoused and reholdered and all the rest. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, so when people are getting stuff regraded, if they crack them out of the case and then resubmit the same card, if they never resubmit the broken label to have it taken off the pop report, then it will appear on the pop report in both the original grade and the new changed grade, or just again the same grade again. It will appear multiple times, so it will appear that there's more of these cards than there actually are.
Yeah, I mean that's just so interesting because there's this whole concept of how little accuracy there can be in the hobby. And I think we're gonna have some future podcasts on this that I'm really interested in talking about.
Yeah.
Um, what should be allowable and what should not be allowable, but this whole accuracy thing, and should grading companies be the arbiter, the kind of judge, the final judge of what's real and what's not real and all of that. It just shows you that even down to the level, sometimes you're playing catch up if you don't have the numbers right from the very beginning, or you don't have an actual process of being able to show that something was taken off a pop report or something like that.
Yeah, there's also cases where a pop report is just too low, because one of the cards we have talked about a lot before, Stadium Challenge Deoxys, I'm sure a lot of people know about it. For a long time, PSA would grade the card, but they wouldn't recognize the Stadium Challenge variant because I guess there wasn't enough information on it. So they would grade that card as just being a regular card from the Deoxys set. I know mine is graded like that. The label on mine doesn't say Stadium Challenge. It just says Deoxys EX Deoxys. So there are probably multiple copies of that card graded, which are listed in the wrong section of the pop report. They're listed as that regular card, making the Stadium Challenge version look like there are less graded than there actually are. And then a big thing is the base and fossil 99 to 2000. PSA have only just started recognizing that. So there are probably a large amount of cards from those two sets, I would say, especially non-hollow base set, which are just graded as unlimited when in fact they're 99 to 2000 variants. So the pop report for the variants will look incredibly low compared to what is actually graded.
Oh, so that's really interesting because that sort of like asserts the other side that there actually could be more of them around, but an
Yeah.
unsuspecting buyer looking through could look at it as being more rare than it actually is if they're just looking at pop reports.
Yeah, I mean, with the Stadium Challenge Deoxys, there would have been a long time where PSA 9 would have been pop 1 in the pop report with no 10s, because that's what you'd be looking at as the pop report, but we knew that there were at least 3 9s graded, because, mine was graded a 9, and there was someone else had one that was graded 9 that wasn't labeled up as Stadium Challenge, and then there was one graded a 9 which was labeled as a Stadium Challenge, so despite the fact that there were 3 of these cards, it was only saying that there was one in the pop report. There was an annoying situation a few years back. Like I've said before, I collect PSA 10 Vaporeons. There's one very rare Vaporeon, which is a tournament promo. There was a European variant of the tournament promo. It's on with the orange stamp rather than the purple. I'm sure we've talked about this before. The staff version of that, and I believe the players one as well, never had a PSA 10 graded. I think the staff had a couple of 8s, and that was it. And then one day, suddenly, a PSA 10 appeared on the pop report. But the person who had the card was showing it off, and it was the purple stamped variant. It was the much more common card, of which there were actually 5 or 6 of those graded with the correct label. So the orange stamped staff was still pop 0, and the purple one would have been one higher. But the person who was selling it was listing it saying this is pop 1 and linking the pop report, and it was only if people were pushing them and saying this doesn't match up where they'd admit, oh yeah, it's actually a PSA error, but it's pop 1 PSA error or whatever he was trying to add to it, it's special label error, some nonsense like that. It was just where it was then they could misrepresent the value and the rareness of the card, because in that case it was 100% just a PSA screw up. They graded both copies of the card, they just put the wrong one on the label. So pop reports can be good at times for just getting a feel of cards, but you can't just take them as being 100% gospel, because they're just clearly not.
And sometimes you're crossing between 2 different or 3 different grading companies as well, right? So you could be
Yeah,
reholding a whole different company too.
yeah. So each company will have their own pop report, but if you grade something with PSA, you can crack it out of the case, send it into Beckett as well, and then it can end up on both companies' pop reports.
Right. So I just have one more thing to talk about. I had an interesting discussion this week, as I was thinking about this whole concept of where do people's interests in the hobby lie today? Where are they most interested? And is it in vintage? Is it in modern? Where is it? And for me, I see this consistent movement towards newer stuff. And I'm afraid what's happening is that there's so much new stuff coming out, and it's so beautiful and it's so alluring and it's actually so relatively inexpensive to going back to any point, that so many of the new collectors coming into the hobby are really, intrigued and enthralled by all this new kind of flashy artist, wonderful stuff.
Yeah,
And so it's really created this kind of hole when you have the vintage and there's a ton of the base and fossil and jungle and that time. And then there's just not a ton in between. There's a much less. And now you get a ton of stuff here. And somebody actually told me that they looked at the pop report, and there was something like 80,000 cards already graded of Japanese 151. 80,000 cards. And I'm thinking to myself how it's kind of amazing how will there ever be a time where people will revisit those EX era stuff and the not the very first vintage and anything from 2004, 5 all the way to 2015? Or is it just going to pass them by? You know, we're going to have to wait 25 years for someone to realize there might actually be value in the scarcity there. But again, there can't be value in the scarcity unless there's actual demand. If all the demand keeps coming for 151 and Obsidian Flames and Paradox Rift and whatever, these other things. I don't, is it called Paradox Rift?
Yeah, I believe that's a new set.
Okay. So it was just my thought on this is that it really is sort of like there's so many cards coming out now, and they're
Yeah.
printing more and more, and there's so many new people. Will people ever go back to that stuff, or will it just kind of be a harbinger of the past, and they will find very little interest in going back to any of those sets, hollows, reverse hollows, as this new stuff keeps coming out?
Well, maybe. I mean, we have seen quite a bit of interest in at least the higher end stuff of the EX era. So, the EXs and the gold stars do have quite a lot of love. Maybe not so much the hollows or reverse hollows just yet, but at least that high end stuff does. And then moving into Diamond and Pearl, the level X's have their fans. It's definitely not as widespread. We've talked a bit recently, well, quite a lot really, about how Scarlet Violet sets are easier to full set from packs than Sword and Shield. So we might get it now where if people are actually finishing modern sets as they come out, they have a bit more time to start looking towards older stuff that they might like. Because, with Sword and Shield, if we're talking about where they have to open so much to actually finish it, or it's so difficult and there's so much for them to buy, that it's taking them until the next set comes out, maybe even longer to finish their set. So maybe now, if it's easier, if they finish their set within the first month, they've got 2 months until the next set. Maybe then they start looking back. We'll see. I do think, especially, I would say personally, Diamond and Pearl and HGSS, I think, are hugely underrated. I know the EX era, like I say, is getting some love, but I think I'm shocked that Diamond and Pearl and HGSS doesn't get way more love than it does. We see sealed product from those two eras going through the roof. Like, we're seeing the booster boxes going for tens of thousands, but then the actual sets, you can still pick up relatively cheaply. Like, out of the two eras, it's really only Call of Legends with a shiny Legend subset that's really demanding any sort of a high price for stuff within a set. I mean, it's great for me because I've been picking up a lot of the promos and stuff for that era, finishing off my staff promos. I just need a couple more staff promos from that era, but yeah, I would like to see more people taking note of those sets.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from the viewers and just, to hear if they, what do you think about that? Do you think that there's just so much coming out that folks will pretty much focus more on the newer stuff and just keep moving forward and kind of forget about the past? Or do you think what Dan is saying makes sense, that, there'll be folks that are actually committed to filling in those set holes and those, from the past, and that they're willing to do it and they will have more time to do it? Or, do you think also that maybe with all of these new products above and beyond just the regular sets, but more of these promotional and special type of sets are going to end up costing the full budget for people? I mean, again, I just like to get that kind of notion of what you guys are thinking out there as well. Again, my belief from what I see is there's just so few master set type of collectors anymore.
Yeah.
That there seem to be moving down to characters and certain eras and certain just higher value stuff. But I'd love to hear people's opinions, of course.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone has an opinion on that, be sure to leave it in the comments. Hopefully next week we'll get back to reading out comments and stuff properly, but that will depend kind of on how late I get back on Sunday and how much of an emergency late night film we need to do. But we'll definitely start addressing previous comments and stuff coming up, and I'll be replying to a lot of comments once I'm back home and back settled at least.
Dan, what my last question is, when is your next trip? When is your next formal trip planned? And I'm going to give you a heads up here, because whatever you say, I'm going to try to get you to book something in between that trip and to come here. So what are we doing, Dan? What's the next formal trip on the calendar, or is there nothing there yet?
Well, you are not going to get us to book anything in between. So our next trip is first weekend of December. We are going out to PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia.
PAX Unplugged. What is that?
PAX is a big gaming expo. They have PAX East and PAX West in Boston and Seattle. But PAX Unplugged is more board games rather than video games, which is why it's unplugged. And Laura is working the Play Lab there, and I'm going to go over and play some Lorcana while she's teaching people how to play Pokemon. So we'll be going there for that weekend.
Is that a is Laura's activity in that and working the Play Lab an actual Pokemon sanctioned part of that convention?
Yes, it is. It's run by one of the bigger tournament organizers. It's not a tournament; it's teaching people how to play. But Pokemon set up the big full Play Lab the same way that they do at Worlds and stuff.
Okay, and you're still since anytime you say a card, it triggers a panic attack inside my left side of my body. So Play Labs, we're still looking for a card or two from something previous, like at Worlds that was out there that you're still
Yes,
like
it was the Score Bunny.
Okay,
We need you one Score Bunny. I don't think that Score Bunny is probably going to come to this, but we'll see. I'll keep my eyes open, and I'm still working on it. Still keeping my eyes open everywhere for you.
okay. All right, Dan. So it sounds like I'll never see you in person again. So enjoy most of my collection. Have a good time looking at it and viewing it and handling it and hiding it, and keep
It's
it away.
probably going to have to be after New Year, just to get Laura some more time off work. She's even for PAX, she's had to arrange to give blood 2 more times to get the extra day off in order to be able to travel up to PAX the day before it starts.
Okay, no sweat. Well, maybe we can do like a Jack Wick 5, and I can have people try to kill you, and it'll make you more be on the run or something, and see if we can.
Sure, we'll see how that works.
I think it's John Wick. I think I said Jack Wick 5, but
yeah, it's John
I would
Wick.
say Jack Reach or something. So John Wick 5 is what I'm saying. So yeah, and you look just like him, by the way. You're very menacing.
Do I?
Yeah, very menacing. You don't talk much, and you have a very dark goth kind of demeanor. So
That's the terrible lighting in this bedroom, is what that is.
no problem, Dan. I know you're warm, you're tired. So listen, you should go, because why shouldn't you go? You should just go.
All right, we can have a pretty short one this week. At least we got something out. And I say next week when we record, I'll be back in the States. We may end up having to record Monday, depending on how late I get back, which would mean that expected release date would be Wednesday rather than Tuesday. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what time my flight actually gets in. But hopefully you did all enjoy this one. Hopefully you enjoyed. Oh, I can't even speak. Hopefully you join us again for more of these podcasts. Hopefully you keep watching more of our videos. Drop lots of comments. Let us know what guests you want to see. More importantly, let the guests know that you want to see them on the podcast. Go and tell them about this podcast. We know about all these guests. We know the people. We just they wouldn't want to come on our podcast yet. So you got to go and tell them. Go and tell them. Say we want to see you on Coffee Talks, and then they'll say, "What's Coffee Talks?" Which is a fair comment.
Yeah, leverage your friendships for our benefit, please. That's the least you can do.
Anyway, yeah, it is so warm. I hate that England doesn't have air conditioning. I've had to close the windows for how loud it is outside, and I've got a laptop on my knee. I'm catching fire here. So yeah, enjoy everyone. I will hopefully have more videos up between now and the other podcast stuff I recorded when I was still back in the US. But if I don't, we'll at least see you again next week.
Okay, take care. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Coffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person, featuring music by More Than Never and artwork by Laura Norton. A special shout out to all of our Patreon members. Join us again next time.
But they don't want you to.